morning guys, Commander here, and welcome to a new video on PC building. Now, we have got, as you can see on the desks, we have got 3 PCs and there's one that's boxed up in there. Now that is relevant to this video that we're going to be doing today. However, there weren't enough benches to put them all on, so that's the reason why it's in a box. But anyway, what we're going to be doing today is I had an idea based off what we did last episode where we were benchmarking and comparing the AMD Radeon, I think it's a 5700 XT, to the 2080 and 2080 Ti, and seeing where it fell, and it actually falls in between the 2070 and the 2080 as far as benchmarking is concerned. However, the more mainstream AMD Radeon graphics cards, like we've got the AMD Radeon RX Vega 64, and that PC there has got the Vega 56 in it. How they stand up against the 2080 and the 2080 Ti, just a point to note, they're all running the exact same spec, right? So if we go into here, they're all running at the CPU, they're all running at base clock. I've actually downclocked to what the base clock is, because this game, when you put in CPUs, it also overclocks them to the overclock like system spec. So I've downclocked them all to 3000 MHz, which is what the 9980XE says that it can handle on base and what you buy it as a consumer for. So that's the speed that we're going to get for, and it's basically the RAM. I've turned XMP on. It's all got the exact same amount of RAM, but I've turned XMP on. RAM speed's 4000 MHz. And then what I've basically got is, if I just apply changes and then yes. Wait for that to boot. Now they've all got the exact same system in them. They've got a Corsair card this, except for the case. The case is the only thing that's different. But they've all got an Asus Prime X299 Deluxe, a Core i9-9980XE, an ATEX current high game at 850 watts, 64 gigs of G-Skill Trident Z Black at 4000 MHz. 2080 Ti, again, the graphics card's obviously different. So we've got a terabyte hard disk and then the fans that come with the case. Same with this one. The PC, exactly the same. Exactly the same case, motherboard and CPU and everything. I've only put 64 gigs in because, you know, I could put 128 gigs in because it is a server board. But in the grand scheme of things, as far as benchmarking is concerned, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't make any difference. And also, we're benchmarking the graphics cards today. We're not actually doing like a full system benchmark. We're just doing the graphics cards, and it really doesn't matter. The performance of your GPU is not it is based off of like the rest of your system, but the GPU alone, it really doesn't make any difference. The difference between 32 and 64 gigs of RAM is not massive. Anyway, so I'll start running that. Let's switch this on, and I want to just see what I switch on, what the temp's like. Again, CPU, we won't see much from the GPU at the moment because it is only like the CPU is only like it's a 9980XE. Let's turn that on and let's start that going. Now you should be in your GPU test. No, you're still in a CPU test. That's fine. Now bear in mind, the CPU test will be slightly slower because it is running its base clock. It's not running its overclock. So GPU temperature, okay, 53 degrees. That's good. About average. Again, we haven't overclocked it, so that's about the temperatures I'd expect from the GPU of a 9900K. No, 2080 Ti. Sorry. Well, that's a CPU. Anyway, so the 2080, what temperature we shown? 49. So basically, just shy of 50 degrees. Again, going about 50 degrees ish, and that's about expect from that. I'm really interested to see the temps of the Radeon card, and see how that works, because like it's the thing is, the Radeon cards are cheaper. They're much cheaper than NVIDIA's counterpart, but the performance doesn't really, in my personal opinion, doesn't make it worthwhile. And I want to try and prove a point in here. Now, what have we got here? Right, that's 12,000. That's fine. Okay, graphics card score. Okay, 2080 Ti does 12,000. Never mind. Never mind my stupid like idiocy about it doing only 8,000, just 12,000. It's actually pretty good because they haven't overclocked it, and that's not even in SLI. That's only one graphics card. I'm quite impressed with that actually. Actually, is that even on overclock? I don't know. I don't know what its base clock is, but anyway, they're all on the same. They're all on the same clock. The only base clock that it comes with the game anyway, so that's fine. The 2080 is 10,469. So that's that's about average. That's not a bad bench. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to take. Actually, no, I'll leave it because I want to compare it to the Vega 64 first. But no, what I'm thinking is that like a Radeon card is about basically in half the price of a okay, 6,923. Okay, so that's significantly lower. That's interesting. Okay, what I want to do, because that's going to be quite low, so that's going to definitely, the Vega 56 is definitely going to be lower. So what I'm going to do is, just quickly, I think the 2080 is a bit too high. So what I'm going to do, just to make it a bit fairer, because, just to make it slightly more fairer, because the Radeon Vega 64 is quite a low, like, it's quite an old card. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 1080 in it. I'm going to put 1080 OC in it. Actually, I don't want the OC because I want it on base clock, don't I? I'll put the 1080 in it, see if it yields like better results. That's it. Got to say 1080. We want the base 1080. There we go. Go for that Founders Edition because why not? Right, power that up. So yes, that's quite. I mean, I expected the 2080 to absolutely blow things out of the park, but I didn't think by that much. So actually, what I'm gonna do, just gonna cut ahead in the video ever so slightly. You won't see this. It'll literally be like an instant. I'm just gonna go see when the Vega 64 was actually released, and see when the 2080 was released, the 2080 Ti, and see which is actually newer. So back in a second. Alright guys, so I'm back. Now, I was just looking on Google. The 1080 and the Vega 64 are both released in 2017. So I think that's going to be a bit of a fairer test than using a 2080 Ti that was made 2 years earlier. So I'm going to change my rigs up a little bit, and I'm going to I'll benchmark them as they are now. Yes, that's quite 6,923. That's still quite high though. That's still quite a high score considering it's a Radeon card. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to see the idea of doing this test was I wanted to see that the Radeon cards are significantly cheaper than NVIDIA's counterparts. Now, maybe not necessarily anymore because 1080s and 1080 Ti's have come down in price because of the release of the RTX series. However, what's the 50 degrees. So the price has come down on the 1080 and 1080 Ti because the RTX cards have been releasing, people are buying them and selling their old GTX cards. However, I want to just see if buying a 1080 Ti at full price, whether it's worth the performance. Now, only because my theory is, and I might be completely wrong when I say this, my theory is that if I benchmark this 2080 Ti up against the Vega 64, if I put two Vega 64s in, bearing in mind, when it released, the Vega 64 was basically half the price of the 1080 Ti. Whether putting two Radeon Vega 64s in a PC, making it, and it matches or even betters the 1080 Ti, meaning that the performance is exactly the same, but you're still paying the same amount. Does that really make any difference? And whether it's better to go for a 1080 Ti just on its own and only have the one, because then you can have two 1080 Ti's and go absolutely even further with your because you're using SLI with the higher graphics cards. So I'm interested to see which one's better. Right, let's go into our test. Right, 8,226. So that's definitely higher than the Vega 64. I'm interested to see what's the so 6,896. So this is more on par with the 1080. It's ever so slightly higher, but it's basically the Vega 64 is on par with the 2080. Sorry, the 1080, and the 1080 Ti completely blows it out of the park. Now I assume by that logic, the Vega 56 is on par with the 1070 most probably. we're gonna test it out. We'll test it out later on. I'll put a PC together. I'll cut ahead in the video and put a PC together with a 1070 in it and see what happens. Now what I want to test is I want to test to see if I stick 2 of these Vega 64 cards in it, in SLI or Crossfire as it is known in the AMD world, and benchmark that, whether the actual scoring of it will make any difference, or whether it'll make it more on par with the 1080. I want to just see, because I'm not sure the difference in price between the Vega, the 1080, the base 1080 and the Vega 64, whether it is directly pretty much in half, but whether putting two, you basically, the NVIDIA card is a whole, think of it as like a whole, like a whole piece of something. The Vega 64 is 2 halves, so, and because they're 2 halves, they're cheaper, but to get the same performance, you have to put them together and like glue them together, so you still get 2 parts, pay for 2 parts and pay the same amount, and you still get the same performance. So does that really make any sense? And this is what got me confused with the Radeon card that we were testing. Was it yeah, it was the one we were testing last episode with the 5700 XT. Whether it does actually make sense to buy one that's cheaper but is slightly worse performance. And that's the thing with the Radeon. This is the reason why NVIDIA's got the is top dog at the moment. You know, I'm not sure if Radeon are coming back with putting a new card in, because AMD are bashing it out with CPUs with their Threadrippers and their Ryzen series of CPUs, but they're falling behind with the Radeon graphics cards. But NVIDIA is absolutely bashing it out of the park. It is more expensive to buy NVIDIA, and it is cheaper to buy Radeon, but the performance difference is what we're testing now, and I'm really interested to see whether it's actually worth the performance difference. I mean, the performance, okay, absolutely smash it out of the park. See, that's more 2080 style. 2080 Ti, sorry. So what was the 1080 Ti? 87. So that's more 2080 Ti style. That is, Christ. Now, is that because Crossfire is more like ability-wise than the like is better like optimized in SLI maybe? I don't know. Right, let's put that away. Let's get the Vega 56 out. That's actually quite surprised me. I'm really quite surprised by the fact that that is actually like the results that we got on that, because that's mental. That performance is mental, that is. Right, so I'll let that go. So basically, back in the day, where even before RTX was even a thing, you could buy 2 Radeon Vega 64s and basically have the performance of a next-gen NVIDIA card that they haven't even planned out yet by the time this released. That's really weird. That's actually really cool. You know, and that's where the competition goes. But the thing is, a lot of people are very, like, and I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. I'm a little bit iffy with SLI and Crossfire because I don't actually know how it works. Now, SLI, I know it. You have an SLI bridge. You basically just plug it in and it works. But I don't know where you plug it into. There's probably instructions of how to do it. And it's the same with Crossfire, most probably. But I'm not. There's a lot of people who wouldn't want to do it. There's a lot of people who don't know how to do it. So just for somebody who's just wants a single GPU, then NVIDIA is definitely the right place to go to, considering the performance difference between the first one and the second one. However, if you are experienced PC gamers who want just like the best system they possibly could, back in the day of the 1080s and 1080 Ti's, buying, as far as SLI was concerned, two Vega 64s was very good as far as performance was concerned. What I actually want to do, considering that so what's the Vega 56? What's the Vega 56 saying to me? That's actually relatively similar performance to the Vega 64, actually. Right, what I'm going to do, let's put this into Crossfire. What I want to do now is, considering the Vega 64 graphics card in Crossfire absolutely blew NVIDIA out of the park with as far as its single graphics card is concerned, I want to see what difference it makes if I put an SLI 1080 Ti in here, so put a second 1080 Ti graphics card in here and see what the performance difference is, and see if it's any more or less than that of the Vega 64. Which I'm quite interested in seeing. I won't bother with the 10. I might do the 1080 in a second. Actually, no. What I'll do the 1080 now. Why are you not plugged in or run out of cables? No, plug in. Thank you. There we go. Right, what I'll do it with this one as well. Shut you off and see what the performance is, because this just been completely blown out of the park at all. Like both the Vega 40 like Vega 64 and the Vega 56 completely just annihilate that card. But I'm interested to see what the difference in performance actually is. Right, let's start this on going and run that and see what the performance difference actually is. So it was about 12. The two Vega 64s were about 12,000. So I want to see what two 1080 Ti's are in SLI. I'm not going to bother in SLI with that one. I can't be bothered. Yeah, so I'm quite sure what the 56 is going to show. I mean, we're going a solid 60 FPS here on the benchmarking. So it'll probably show, I'm going to guess about 10k. But then considering it was the same with it's about the same score as the 64, I'm going about 12,000 actually. That's pretty cool. Not as much as the Vega 64, which is what you would expect. But even so, two Vega 56s, considering its benchmarking, like of how old it actually is, two of them are up to, considering the price of how much they cost and considering they're quite cheap in comparison with the NVIDIA counterpart. It's more, again, it's up to like the 2080 standard as far as benchmarking speed is concerned. But I'm interested to see what 1080 Ti's are and what the score is going to be like. I mean, obviously the score is definitely more, because we're already in the 93. We're on a solid 93 frames per second here. So it's definitely going to be more. I'm going to say about 14,000. Maybe 13 and a half, but then we have bumped up the frames quite a lot, so I'm thinking of about 14,000 maybe 15. Oh, I was just about to say maybe 15 if they pushed it, but bloody hell. Oh, dear me, 16,000. That's absolutely annihilated that SLI test. Christ. So in both single core and single card and SLI, the 1080 Ti absolutely smashes a Radeon out of the park. But if you buy two Radeon cards, it works out as the same if you buy a single card, and you get better performance. I think you may be slightly more. I mean, when this came out, when 1080 Ti's came out, for two of them, you'd be looking at about 1,500 quid. Now you wouldn't even you'd barely break 1,000 with two Vega 64s. I'm pretty sure. With just buying two of them in Crossfire. So is it really worth? I mean, buying two Vega 64s is definitely going to be more expensive than buying one 1080 Ti. But is it really in the same? Which one was actually better to buy? I personally would go for one 1080 Ti because it is cheaper and you get the similar performance. But somebody who's a Radeon person would actually go for, like, if you were hard dead set on building an AMD build, so you wanted an AMD CPU and a Radeon GPU, and you wanted it full out of the park like we're doing at the moment, then there't nothing wrong with going with two Radeon cards, but you're not going to get the performance of two 1080 Ti's in SLI as you are with the Radeon in Crossfire. So I'm not sure if there's a counterpart to the 2080 Ti. Not at the moment. I know there's a counterpart to the 2080 at the moment, which is that card that we were testing, the 5700 XT. But even so, that was more like between the 2070 and the 2080. So what I actually want to do, because this card, this is the 1080, this is the base 1080. So what I'm going to do, I just want to remind myself of what I benchmarked the GPU at. So I'm going to benchmark that quickly, and I want to see if the base 1080, bearing in mind that is 11 gigs of video memory, so obviously that's going to be a better like score anyway. But I'm interested to see what the single score is. Now, bear in mind, this was about 6,000, this Vega 56. Now, the only difference with this in the Vega 64 is that the Vega 64 has got slightly higher clock speed. The actual, like, memory and all that itself is basically the same as the memory itself is the same as the Vega 56. It's just that the clock speed is slightly different. So what I want to do is, this card, the 2080, is, bear in mind, running at 40 FPS at the moment. So we're already worse than the Crossfire already. So that's quite interesting to have a look at. But I want to see if we have the 1080s in SLI, see how they bench up against a Vega 56 and a Vega 64, and see which is better. Whether it's better to get, I mean, thinking about it now, obviously the 2080 Ti is going to absolutely punch the Vega cards out of the water because it's already got an advantage with having more video memory in it. But the 1080, sorry, I don't know why I keep saying 2080. I've been saying that a lot. I'm used to saying 2080. That's the 20 series cards are the ones we've been using. But that is really cool. I only noticed that that's 3D instead of 2D. Never mind. Anyway, but so what are we on? Okay, so again, we're relatively similar scoring to what the single one actually is. So what I want to do is, if we shut the system off, let's go into let's put this in SLI. So another 1080 into SLI, and we shall see what the actual clock speed, what the actual difference in score is between this and that, because that'd be a bit more of a fairer test. And looking at it with just the single GPU test, is relatively similar. It maybe the NVIDIA card is ever so slightly faster, I think, but not by an awful lot. So I want to see what the dual card score actually is, and if it makes much of a difference. Now, again, if we go on the benchmark score and we get into the GPU test and we are in the 60 FPS, like 60, 61 FPS, like area, then that means it's going to be pretty much the same score. But I'm quite interested to see now if it benches the same, so two 1080 cards is benches higher, so benches the same or relatively the same as the Radeon cards. I want to see. What I'm going to do, I'll put the 2080 away, sorry, this PC away with the two 1080 Ti's in it, because we've already found out that it absolutely blows it out the park, blows everything out of the park, obviously. But I want to see if that benchmark's the same as this, or the GPU score's relatively similar, then definitely go for a Radeon card. The Radeon card would be the best choice because it's cheaper. It's much cheaper than buying the two cards, and you basically get similar or pretty much exactly the same performance between the two. So, you know, it may be slightly higher, but based on the fact that our score is, yes, exact answer, 12,837. 11, so, okay, so it's slightly more. Okay, so we've accounted, so as far as the Vega 56 is concerned, I would go with the two 1080s. But what are we going to get from the two Vega 64s? Now, this is the test that's going to be interesting, because this is the test where this is basically equivalent to the 1080. So I want to see what is actually 187 FPS already. So I'm not sure what the 1080s were, what frame rate they were, but this is again already better than the Vega 56s. Now, if this benchmarks higher than the two 1080s, the price difference is ever so slightly more with the Vega 64s, because the Vega 64s is more 1080 Ti pricing, but the performance. See, this is what's really hard about graphics cards, because it's so jumbled up, because there's no direct comparison. One's higher than the other, but it's really hard to explain. This card benches lower than this card, only by slightly though, but this card's cheaper. So if you're not too fast about having that little bit of an edge on your performance, then I would go for this card. If you care about a little edge in your benchmarking, go for this card. But, however, as we're going to look in this card, it's actually exactly the same. Is it? 12, 6, 7, 9, 12, 8. Okay, so that is pretty much even. These two are even. I wasn't actually expecting that. I was expecting that to be more because we were looking at 87 frames per second on the GPU benchmarking. Okay, so as far as I'm not entirely sure the price difference between, I want to put on screen now, or it'll be on the screen at some point, the calculations of the pricing between the different cards. I think because Radeon's cheaper generally, and I'm only thinking off the top of my head here, that if you were going Radeon and 1080, I would personally, considering the price difference, I would go for 1080. So no, not 1080, Radeon, because the price difference, it doesn't make a 1080 worth the price that you're paying for it. Now, if you want to go full caboose on it, then go for your the 1080 Ti's, because that absolutely blows everything out of the water. But as far as Radeon's concerned, if you're going to go price to performance, you're better off going Radeon, you know. And I wouldn't go for the 56 because between 56 and the 1080, the 1080 definitely beats it as far as score is concerned. It's not by a lot. So again, even if you don't want that high performance, you don't care about that extra 1000 score and that extra little bit of performance. And bear in mind, we haven't overclocked them yet. But again, overclocking, the overclocking will basically show the same results. Just depends on how high we can overclock it. But the scoring itself is very much like, if you didn't really care too much about the scoring, I would go for this one because it is definitely cheaper. The Vega 56, because it's cheaper than these two cards in like each. You know, it's cheaper than the Vega 64, and it's cheaper than the 1080. So if you don't care about a little like jump in performance by about 1,000 points, then go for this one. Go for the 56. But if you care about that, I still can't recommend NVIDIA because of the price point. Now, if you're an NVIDIA fanboy like me, you are going to buy NVIDIA, because I've had NVIDIA all through, since having this PC that I've got at the moment. Every single graphics card that I've wanted to buy has been NVIDIA, and it's always been NVIDIA. But if you are deciphering and you're on a budget, but you want to go as high end as you possibly can, you don't want to overspend, go for the Radeon, because the price to performance is much better. And you know, and again, even if you want to go full out, just go for the 1080. You know, but there isn't an NVIDIA, sorry, there isn't a Radeon equivalent in this game anyway. There probably is in real life that we can benchmark, but in this game, I don't think there's a Radeon equivalent to the 2080 and 2080 Ti, as we found out at the start of this video. But yeah, so that's quite interesting. That's an interesting experiment to have a look at. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash that like button and hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming content. If you have any other suggestions for any videos that I could do in this game, so like comparing different CPUs, GPUs, whatever, and see what happens, then do leave it in the comment section down below, and I will get to that as I do. So anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed, and I shall see you all later. Bye.